They said maybe it did destroy it. We agree it did destroy it, but maybe it could have destroyed it more. No, it couldn't have destroyed it more. Everyone hit. And it's very disrespectful to those great geniuses and patriots that flew those planes through tremendous dangers.
Oh my God. Oh no.
I'm not happy with Israel. And we did it in 3 weeks, and it was headed by General Raisin Kane, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's great. Just left him. No, I think it's time that we celebrate. And I sort of have to laugh at these people. Well, you know, you're going to spend a lot of money. A lot of that money is being paid for by me and people that make donations. I don't know if you know that. A lot of it won't even come out of the military. I think I can say that, Susie, right? We have people putting up money to do it. Not that it's necessary, because I think it's a great expenditure. We have many tanks. We have all sorts of new ones and very old ones, old from World War I and World War II. It's really a celebration of the Army. So the Army is a year older than the country. So next year we celebrate 250 years, but we're celebrating the Army on Flag Day. And it's not my birthday. It is my birthday, but I'm not celebrating my birthday. I'm celebrating Flag Day. It happens to be the same day, so I take a little heat. But Flag Day is the appropriate date. And we're celebrating 250 years of the Army, a great service. And remember, you know, think of it. We won so much. We won World War I, World War II, so much else. And then we became politically correct. But I can only tell you that I was told that ISIS would take anywhere from 4 to 5 years. And we did it in 3 weeks. You were there, you watched, right? We have the greatest military in the world. Nobody can beat us. As long as we have our right leadership, nobody can beat us. If we have stupid people running it, like you had it in Afghanistan, when you... Let's have a fight. Let's figure it out. Anyway, but we appreciate it, and we've had a tremendous relationship, Mark and I. And we've really worked on the subject for a long time. When Biden was here, it just died like everything else died. And now it's, you're going to take, I guess, a vote today, right?
Absolutely. Today we will decide unanimously to do it. That's my absolute conviction.
So we can't talk about it until the vote's taken, because sometimes, you know, strange things happen with us. But I think you're going to.
I'm not too worried.
I think you're going to do very well. Everyone's very happy about it. Go ahead. Yes,
President. How is the Iran-Israel ceasefire going, in your opinion?
I think very good. Israel came back yesterday. I was so proud of them. Because they came back, you know, they went out because they felt it was a violation. And technically they were right, but it just wouldn't have worked out very well. And they brought the planes back. They had gone on to another journey because it was a little bit of a violation. And I said, you got to get them back. And they came back, and it was a great thing, and it's going very well.
Mr. President, what is your response to the Foreign Minister saying he still wants to enrich nuclear?
Hello, Katie. She's so great, this one. Any questions she asks, I'll answer. Well, maybe I better not say it. What was your question?
What is your response to the Iranian Foreign Minister continuing to say Iran will enrich uranium and pursue nuclear weapons?
Well, I don't know if they've said that, but I'll tell you, the last thing they want to do is enrich anything right now. They want to recover. And we won't let that happen, number one. Militarily, we won't. I think we'll end up having somewhat of a relationship with Iran. I see it. Look, I've had a relationship over the last 4 days. They agreed to the ceasefire. And it was a very equal agreement. They both said, that's enough. They both said it. But no, they won't do that. The last thing they want to do, Katie, is enrich. They're not looking to... They're not. Can you imagine after all of that, they're going to say, "Oh, let's go do a bomb." there could be a day in the future, and then somebody else taking our place will be saying, don't do it. And maybe they won't do it as well, I don't know. But they're not going to have a bomb, and they're not going to enrich. And we believe all of the stuff is down there. We don't think they had nearly the time, because to get that out is a very difficult thing. It's not like moving a package or taking this carpet up and moving it. It's very difficult. It's very dangerous to do. We believe it's all down there. We had a tremendous victory, a tremendous hit, and because of that, I don't think they would have been down there, because they knew we were coming. When they know we're coming, they're not going to be down at that, 30 stories underground. So, no, I think it was just a tremendous victory for everybody, including Iran. Look, they've got a country. And
I would like to thank the Deputy UN Secretary General, Rosemarie DiCarlo, and the
Rosemarie
Coordinator of the
de-
Security Council on the issues of the implementation of the Resolution 2231, the permanent representative of Slovenia, Samuel Zbogar. And taking this opportunity, I would like to congratulate my Slovenian colleagues on the consensus on the half-year report of the
Thanks
coordinator,
for listening
and
again
count
to
on
the
their
news.
further efforts to ensure the operation of the Resolution 2231 format until its completion in accordance with the established deadlines in October 2025. You have just listened to the head of the
Russian.
delegation of the European Union, Stavros Lambrinidis. Madam Chairman, on the night of June 12, 13, a
Russia.
member of the UN and a participant of the UN Security Council, Myava, was subjected to unprovoked aggression, and the whole world was on the brink of a large-scale nuclear disaster. The Russian Federation most decisively condemns the attacks on the territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran, including its peaceful nuclear infrastructure, which is under the guarantee of the IAEA. The actions of the United States and Israel have directly violated the UN Charter, the resolution of its Security Council, and the one being discussed today, the Resolution 2231, as well as the Charter of the UNHCR and the profile on the resolution of the agency's General Conference. These actions are a direct and dangerous intrusion on the authority of Myava, in particular on the right of Iran to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, including the enrichment of uranium, and are a painful blow to the non-dissemination regime. And all these actions were carried out by two states, one of which is a depository of Myava, and the other has been avoiding joining this most important element of international security for a decade, as well as setting up its nuclear activities under the guarantee of the IAEA. By the way, I would like to say that I am a little surprised by the request of Israel to participate in our meeting on the agenda of non-dissemination. I would like to believe that this decision may preclude the unification of this country of Myava, which the whole world would be interested in. Colleagues, the attacks on Iranian infrastructure, including the enterprises of the nuclear fuel cycle, pose a real threat to the most severe radiological consequences that the residents of not only Iran, but the entire Middle East could feel. All this, unfortunately, happened not even with a silent consent, but with the approval of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, which still consider themselves full-fledged members of the IAEA. Their assurances of adherence to the search for a diplomatic solution around the Iranian nuclear program did not cause any trust before, but now it has become simply impossible to take them seriously. Judge for yourself at first. These countries deliberately refused to implement their part of the obligations within the framework of the nuclear deal, and did not provide the conditions for creating an economic return from the removal of European sanctions against Iran, which were in force until 2015. Then they followed the path of the United States, which withdrew from the IAEA in 2018, and following Washington, resumed their one-sided sanctions pressure on Tehran, thereby overshadowing the prospects of a full-scale restoration of the IAEA, the readiness of which was repeatedly spoken about by Iranian colleagues. At the same time, Berlin, London, and Paris tried to portray the legitimate response measures taken by Iran, which they themselves, i.e. Berlin, London, and Paris, provoked to suppress the alleged Iranian nuclear threat. They all mean Iran and the IAEA Secretariat, within the framework of which work was underway to close unresolved issues. Even in spite of this, Iran remains the most strictly monitored state among all the members of the agency. According to the report of the IAEA Director General, there is no risk of proliferation. Let me emphasize that the report of the IAEA does not mention the conversion of the nuclear material accumulated
Where are
in
you
the Islamic Republic of
living
Iran
right now,
for
past
unannounced and
2010?
military purposes.
Are you listening
That
also
is,
to this
the IAEA does
world
not
news?
record any signs of the
Thank you
creation
for
of
joining
nuclear
me live.
weapons in Iran. Therefore, all the statements of the Western delegations about the opposite are a lie intended for the audience, which either did not read these reports or does not understand this issue. The cynicism and hypocrisy of the mentioned Western states reached an apogee on June 12th. On this day, the IAEA Director General adopted yet another pretentious and detached from the reality of the Iranian-inspired resolution
Yeah,
of the
hello.
Western countries. Immediately after this, Israel struck peaceful nuclear facilities in Iraq. A week later, the United States attacked the sovereign Iranian territory. As a proof that this combination was agreed upon in advance, the United Kingdom and France, pretending to be supporters of diplomacy, rushed to defend the actions of Western Jerusalem and Washington. As a result, on Sunday, we witnessed another attempt to legitimize the use of force under the UN Charter and strikes on peaceful nuclear facilities in violation of the UN Charter and all norms of nuclear and physical nuclear security. As we have already mentioned, the French Chancellor Frédéric Merz did not hesitate to cynically state that Israel was doing dirty work for the Europeans. This is the direct speech of the head of the government to the state participants of the IAEA. It is important not to forget that Western Jerusalem began its operation 2 days before the next round of Iranian-American contacts on nuclear issues, with the help of Oman clearly aiming to disrupt this process. Against this background, the Western trio still has enough hypocrisy to demand not from Israel and the United States, but from Tehran as a victim of aggression to return to the negotiating table. In this case, if our British, French, and German colleagues continue to threaten the launch of the proposed Resolution 2231 on the mechanism for restoring anti-Iranian sanctions on the UN Security Council, we would like to remind you that there are no political, legal, or procedural grounds for this. Berlin, London, and Paris, with their chronic violations of the mentioned resolution and the Security Council, have lost their right to use the instruments prescribed to them, and the United States, in principle, has not had it since the outcome of the deal. Whatever they may want to say, the Vienna mechanism for resolving disputes has never been launched. However, now the UK, France, and Germany do not even have the moral right to mention the possibility of a snapback. It is their actions that have become a real betrayal of diplomacy and led to what we are forced to deal with right now. Madam Chairman, a special responsibility lies with the IAEA and its Secretariat. Under the conditions of Israel and the United States intervention in the global nuclear non-proliferation regime, the basis of which is the NEO, General Director Grossi and his colleagues are obliged to strictly comply with their mandate, as well as the resolutions of the General Conference of the Agencies 4144 and 533. The leadership of the IAEA should not be limited to the streamlined formulations and fragmented information, but should present detailed reports on the attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities under the guarantees of the IAEA. At the same time, it is fundamentally important to state the facts with their own names, directly pointing out who exactly inflicted targeted strikes on them, violating the UN Charter, the IAEA, the resolutions of the Security Council, and the General Conference of the Agencies. Unfortunately, we have already seen what happens when the IAEA General Director, in addition to objective facts and statistics, provides two-way assessment judgments in his reports. They are immediately used by a narrow group of countries to justify their unreasonable and aggressive actions. Mr. Chairman, the settlement of issues concerning the Iranian nuclear program can be achieved only through diplomacy, within the framework of negotiable solutions, the basis of which is the international law and the principles of equal and indivisible security. The Russian Federation consistently supports the search for a peaceful solution to remove concerns around the Iranian nuclear program, which would be acceptable to all parties and the international community as a whole. A great responsibility lies with the Security Council, which is obliged to take the necessary measures. This is what the resolution of the Security Council, proposed by Russia, together with Chinese and Pakistani partners, is aimed at.
Kasama pa ang papa.
Today, we have proposed to our colleagues in the Security Council an updated edition, taking into account the development of the editorial staff, which is aimed at ensuring a stable ceasefire and keeping an eye on its compliance
kasing
with the
pumayag sa
Security
mga
Council
ceasefire.
through the corresponding report of the General Secretary. The agreement with the Russian Federation and the adoption of the resolution No. 2231 of 2015 demonstrated that the international community rejected the military force approaches and made a clear choice in favor of diplomacy. Now we must do it again and without delay. Thank you.
Ay, naku, Lord.
Straight to a Fox News alert, President Trump says he's unhappy with both Israel and Iran, saying both
Hi,
nations
Ricky.
violated the
Rajapati.
bilateral ceasefire agreement.
Hello, thank you for
President
joining
warning
my live.
Israel that any military action will go against the deal after a senior Israeli official told Fox News that they will have to retaliate with force against Iran's missiles.
So the president right now is heading to the
Good.
Netherlands to meet with NATO leaders.
I'm so sad
Here's
for
what
this
he said
daily
right
news.
before he left. Watch.
So I need to
I don't
listen
think
every
so,
day.
but I'm not happy
I
that
just
Israel's
want
going
peace
out
for
now.
both
There was
sides.
one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after
From
the time
where are you
limit, and
living
it
right now,
missed its
Ritik
target.
Prajapati?
And now
you
Israel's
for
going
joining.
out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all
Hi.
fairness, Israel unloaded a lot.
Ritik.
And now I hear Israel just
Hello,
went out
colleagues
because they felt it was
Emmanuel.
violated
where are
by
you
one rocket
living
that
right
didn't
now?
land anywhere.
Thank you for
That's not
joining
what we
my
want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either.
Wow, okay. Thank you, India.
All I do is play both sides. I'm going now,
How
as you
about
know,
you,
to
Felix
NATO.
Emmanuel?
Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Are you going to be the agreement? It's a new dawn in the Middle East, thanks to the agreement you managed to achieve. What are your future plans for the region, for Saudi Arabia, Israel, Gaza, the hostages?
Look, you're asking me about women in the Middle East.
I'm from
It's
the
getting a lot
Philippines,
better.
Ritik.
Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out far faster than I thought. So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East.
No, I'm talking about a new zone in the Middle East that you managed to achieve last night.
Yeah.
It's in,
But I'm
the region
working
is
here
going
in
to a
the
new place
UAE.
with
I'm
with
from the
agreements.
Philippines.
Can you talk what the future plans
I'm working
for
here in the
Gaza, with the
UAE.
hostages?
So I'm
It's a
listening
new
to
dawn. I
this
appreciate the question. You're very nice.
world
Who are you?
news.
Thank you. I'm Maria Pros from
Daily.
Israeli channel reviews.
Thank you for
Well, we have
joining.
to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning.
So
I got to
sad.
get Israel to calm down now.
Do you guys speak with the Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last
I
night?
speak to everybody.
You urge both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for
Yeah.
violating the ceasefire. So
I think
what
we
do you
both
feel?
violated it.
Where are you
I
living
don't
right
think I'm not sure
now,
they did it
Felix
intentionally. They
Emmanuel?
couldn't rein people back.
This is the
I
update
don't like
today.
the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay? I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was
Ritik,
destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed.
I just want
You know what they're
peace
doing? They're
for
really
both
hurting
sides
great pilots
because
that put their lives in the
I
line.
saw
CNN
many
is scum,
lives were
and so is
taken and
MSDNC. They're all. And
people
frankly,
are
the networks
dying.
aren't much better. It's all fake news.
the
But we should
women,
not
the
have done
children.
that. Those pilots hit
I'm
their targets. Those targets were
so sad
obliterated.
about
And the
them.
pilots should be
When we
given
think
credit.
about our
They're not after
family,
the pilots, they're after
that
me. They
will
want to try
happen
it
to
to
our
me.
family.
can
it's
rebuild its
very,
nuclear
very
program.
sad, you know. That's why
Iran will never rebuild
I
its
just
nuclear.
want
From there,
this
absolutely
war
not.
to be
That place is
to end
under
this
rock.
war and
That place is
peace
demolished.
for both
The
sides.
B-2 pilots did
To
their
have a
job. They did it better than
peaceful
anybody could
life.
even imagine. They hit
I think
late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and
I'm
they hit
praying
that target with
for
every one of those things. Then that
for
place is
this
gone.
war to
But when I
stop,
see
to
CNN all
end.
night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize.
Yeah,
I think these guys
yeah,
really, these
Ritik.
networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news.
Oh.
But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
Says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do.
Oh
They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel was committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land.
I don't know
I'm not
yet.
happy about that.
I don't know
Now, we
about
we
this, but
basically have
I'm
two
just
countries that
I
have
just
been fighting so long and
watched
so hard
the
that they don't know what the
Daily
fuck they're
News.
doing. Do you understand that?
Wow, and that's what a lot of people are talking about the expletive at the end, but that's he just being
I
honest.
just watched it
I had
like
the
one.
opportunity to just talk to him before we just went on air
When I
for the 8
scroll
o'clock
and I
hour.
check the
And I
news,
said,
I just
I haven't seen you this upset in a
I'm
while.
so
What's
sad.
really going on? He had just hung up with Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, and he said that the prime minister is bringing all the planes back. I said, why are you so frustrated with Israel? And he says because he didn't feel like it was good faith. That even though they still had some time until the ceasefire, that they essentially unloaded on Iran. I said, what about Iran as it relates to some of the reports that they're still doing their program? He says they got to save face for their country. They still got to appear to be strong. But he goes, that program is done. He said, our pilots fixed all of that when they hit their targets there. But he goes, I'm not happy with both of them, but more so Israel, because he goes, it's over, it's done. The program is done.
Well, and he also said in that press conference that he's upset with Israel because Iran targeted them after the ceasefire, but it was one missile that went nowhere, he said. So for Israel to retaliate against that when nothing happened with that Iranian missile, he doesn't feel like that was in Israel's, they shouldn't have done that, he said.
I'm all for Israel hitting every target possible within those final 8 hours. They got about 100 launchers hiding under tunnels. There's other people. There's other assassinations got to take place. These nuclear scientists got to go. These higher commands got to go. They spent their entire existence trying to kill Israelis and kill us. And now, what the president's referring to, and I think he's right, I don't know if they can do it, but when you have Iran's chief nuclear scientist, Mohammed Aslami, say on Tuesday, they're going to immediately tell Mir News, they're immediately going to start again with their nuclear program. I mean, that's like in your face to us and to Israel.
Well, we knew they were going to do that. We saw those trucks removing some of the enriched uranium out of the facilities. Mike
That was
Tobin
before we
confirmed
hit.
that, exactly. So where is that enriched uranium? We saw those 5 planes go in from China, go into Iran. Did they take enriched uranium back to China to protect it while Iran was preparing to get blasted? Where is that enriched uranium? But I have faith in this president, and I appreciate hearing him say they will never have nuclear facilities
But
again.
here's the other issue. They have to stop financing all their proxies. Ceasefire's great, but if you want to get to the next step, I don't know how you enforce this. Hamas can't get another dollar, Houthis can't get another dollar, and Hezbollah can't get another dollar. They did not back Iran when the chips were down. Either did Russia and North Korea, either did even to
Russia
China.
and Korea.
So we got to make sure that they just can't reconstitute and we're not back here in 18
But
months.
if they do, Israel has great intelligence. We have intelligence. We would know where it is. And look what our military did on Saturday. They could do that again.
Well, but it's very hard to take down. What they did with Hezbollah,
happened?
there's only going to be one pager operation, one walkie-talkie operation. They can't do this again. They cannot get rocketed from both sides. And Hamas has got to be finished. And in a couple of weeks, I guess they're going to look to talk and get the final hostages out. But they have no more money flowing to them right now, and no more money flowing to Hezbollah. If that stays the same, then we could watch these guys wither. Lebanon could actually get Lebanon back.
Brian, you know, from an ideology standpoint, I agree with you. I agree with you that this is something that is deeply rooted in the radical Islamic ideology there in Iran, and they're never going to stop. But I do see the president points out you got to give peace a shot, because he's not only dealing with Iran, but he also has to at least appear to the Muslim world, to the UAE, to Egypt, to Jordan, that he's trying to get a close to this. So working a lot of different factions.
But as you know, Iran is enemies to all those countries.
100%.
They just don't want to come out and say it.
Because of their people.
Right.
The Ayatollah. Most of the Iranians don't like this regime, but they have a lot of power.
The mullahs and the clerics.
At this moment, President Trump is working aboard Air Force One to keep Israel and Iran committed to an historic ceasefire that he brokered. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. That agreement stumbled overnight when Israel and Iran accused each other of firing missiles just after Trump had said the ceasefire is in effect. This morning, on his way to NATO, the summit there in the Netherlands, that's why he's aboard Air Force One. The president said he's out of patience with both nations.
These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. They both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to...
You are in India now?
Well, shortly after that, the president posted this on your screen. Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home while doing a friendly plane wave to Iran. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is in effect. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed he spoke with the president and that Israel would refrain from further attacks. The statement adds President Trump expressed his immense appreciation for Israel, which achieved all of its war goals. The president also expressed his confidence in the stability of the ceasefire. U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, will be in focus moments from now. We begin
Jackson, where are you right now?
White House correspondent Peter
Where are you
Doocy,
watching
who is
right
in
now?
The
Thank you
Hague,
for
Netherlands,
joining
where that NATO
live
summit will be
today.
held later today. Peter.
Harris, good morning. President Trump's baseline throughout this conflict has been that Israel has no greater friend than the United States. But today he showed that you can still sometimes get four-letter word frustrated with your friends.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
A senior administration official tells us to expect two big things out of this short trip to The Hague. The president is going to push other NATO countries to revitalize supply chains to make sure there's never an issue making weapons. And he's going to push them to more than double defense spending from 2% GDP to 5% GDP. Many European partners are putting out the word they will try to do that. But the president's frustration with other countries paying less and then expecting the U.S. to come and bail them out in a wartime has reached a boiling point, so he might be looking for a way out of the provision that requires all NATO members to defend any NATO member that gets attacked, called Article 5.
Are you still committed to Article 5 of NATO?
It depends on your definition. There's numerous definitions of Article 5. You know that, right? I'm committed to saving lives. I'm committed to life and safety. And I'm going to give you an exact definition when I get there. I just don't want to do it on the back of an airplane.
And that could come soon because that airplane is going to land here near The Hague in about 2 hours. Harris.
Peter, thank you. Matt Whitaker, U.S. Ambassador to NATO, is in focus now. Good to see you, Ambassador. How confident is the president that he will walk into the NATO summit with
Yeah,
the
I said
victory of a
yes.
ceasefire holding between Israel and Iran?
Well, good to be with you, first of all. You know, President Trump obviously is the leader of the free world. He is setting the tone. And if you're an adversary
Yes, I
of the
am.
United States, you want peace. If you're an ally, you want to make sure you're a strong ally. And so that's our message here at the summit tomorrow at The Hague. But, you know, President Trump is right. These sides need to stop the fighting. President Trump wants peace across all of these conflicts, and he wants prosperity across the world. And so, you know, we're in a crucial moment, but it's all because of President Trump's leadership that we have a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, you know, and hopefully he can continue to be the peacemaker and bring all the global conflicts to an end.
I'll get to some of the goals for this summit in the Netherlands in just a moment. I do want to show you something, though. Iran launched multiple missiles against an American military base in Qatar yesterday. Qatari air defenses intercepted all but one of those missiles. Thankfully, no casualties reported. The attack was in retaliation to the U.S. strike on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities over the weekend. According to Iran, it was a strong attack, back, so on and so forth. President Trump called Iran's response weak. And one headline says the minimal response was, quote, designed as an off-ramp to conflict with the U.S., end of quote. That was in the Washington Examiner. And the president reiterated the success of Operation Midnight Hammer just this morning.
How confident are you in Iran starting to be completely demolished? I think it's been completely demolished. Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine.
Ambassador, ahead of the NATO summit, what has the president or maybe even your office been hearing from these other countries who will be represented at the NATO summit today about what's happening with the ceasefire?
Well, obviously our allies, like the United States of America and like President Trump, want peace, but we will defend our interests. You know, I think our allies are also realizing that there are certain capabilities only the United States can bring to bear, including flying B-2 bombers halfway around the world from Kansas City, dropping a dozen bunker buster 30,000-pound bombs on an adversary and getting home safely without anybody hardly knowing that we were there in the first place. And I think that is the kind of capabilities our allies want to ally with, and that's why we're going to see history be made tomorrow here at the summit in The Hague for NATO.
Yeah, and the world is watching, but here at home and also in Israel, I would imagine, and in Iran, people are praying that this is going to hold. The Iranian people kind of caught in the middle. One last quick one on that. So the focus has been so much on the ceasefire today. The president has said, well, you know, the Iranian people are the ones who would have to bring about a regime change. Is there any conversation, anything happening around that topic with the Iranian people today?
Yeah, we're waiting.
Where
you know,
in
President Trump is
Philippines
clearly the one that's going to set U.S. policy
San
on these
Jose,
terms. He's
Manila?
been very clear as to what he wants as a result of his, you know, bombing of Iran over the weekend, and that is an end to their nuclear program and making sure that they never have a nuclear weapon. That was a very clear articulation. He then executed it flawlessly after giving the order, and I think, again, if I'm an adversary of the United States, I want peace, and if I am an ally, I want to make sure that I live up to all my commitments and be part of the umbrella of peace and prosperity the United States offers.
Yeah, I wonder how China and Russia are looking at this. Any quick thought on that?
Well, I mean, again, China and Russia should get in line with the rest of the free world, and they should want peace and prosperity as well. And so, you know, I think the security challenges they present globally are a reason that we need to all make sure that we are strong, and that strength is what will ensure the peace.
All right, let's move forward. And speaking of NATO and that Russia situation, Russia and Ukraine had wanted into NATO. We can get into that if we have time, but I want to start with what the president's objectives are. I know one is to go from GDP 2% for these nations who belong to GDP 5% of that for militaries there. Talk to me about that and whether or not that is really going to happen.
Yeah, Harris. Tomorrow we expect that all 32 NATO allies will agree to a new path. And that path, that commitment is going to be 5% of their GDP on defense. And, you know, it is historic. It is probably one of the biggest foreign policy wins of this administration, of any administration. And then we're going to spend the time building out the capacity and the capabilities of the United States, and especially our allies here in Europe, so that they can take over the traditional defense of the European continent and allow the United States to address the challenges that we face globally from our adversaries. But at the same time, you know, our allies want to be part of this alliance with the United States. Yeah. And we at the same time need to address all of our security challenges. And so that's why we're looking for this commitment. That's why our allies are going to deliver this commitment, because it's not just about what the United States want. Ultimately, it's what they need as well. It's what their not only economies, but their societies demand. They want security, and they have to step up. For too long, Europe has been taking advantage of the American taxpayer to provide their traditional security here on the continent, and it's just that time is over. President Trump's been very clear about that, and this is the moment where they are finally going to commit to doing that. Presidents since Eisenhower have been telling Europe they need to take over their own security. And so President Trump has delivered that. But that's a familiar refrain, whether it's the nuclear program of Iran or so many other things. President Trump delivers what these promises that politicians of the past couldn't deliver.
And just real quickly, Article 5 pulls us all in together. If one NATO member is attacked, then the United States comes forth. And from what everyone has seen across the world with what our U.S. military can do, remarkably, and what our president will do, back up his word with action, do you stay in that agreement with Article 5? Or does everybody learn to defend themselves? Like, what is the metric on that?
You have family there, or your...
Yeah, well, Harris, everyone talks about Article 5 and the commitment that an attack on one is an attack on all. But I remind everyone immediately that it all starts with Article 3 of the agreement, which is you need to provide for collective security, but also your individual security. And so each country needs to address their unique security needs within the alliance. And then that strength within their own countries makes us all stronger. And so we have the plans in place to work together, to be interoperable, and there is a great platform here at NATO. But our European allies in Canada need to step up. For too long, they have been underspending, and now is the time, and President Trump is the one that's going to get them to finally do this.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, thank you very much. An important day. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Harris.
Absolutely.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham for more on this. The president's senator was HOT this morning as he departed the White House for NATO. Let's just remind people of just how hot he was. Listen here.
As soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
So what did you make of what you heard the president say earlier today?
In his frustration, but there's no moral equivalency between Iran and Israel. Iran wants to kill all the Jews, and Israel is saying no, not this time around. So Iran is a fanatical religious Nazi regime. Israel is a democracy aligned with the United States, shared values, shared enemies. Israel is our friend. Iran is our enemy. I am glad we've got a ceasefire. I want to praise President Trump and his team for Operation Midnight Hammer.
I don't
if you don't give him
understand.
credit and the military credit,
I don't understand this
problem for you.
language.
They deserve credit. This operation was flawless. It was effective more than anything else. It did obliterate these 3 sites. The pilots did a fantastic job, but so did President Trump, making a bold decision. As to the ceasefire, it's a good thing if it leads to peace. It will be a step backward if it leads to an ability of Iran to rearm and retool. And the head atomic scientist in Iran, the one who's still alive, said they're going right back to enrichment. So I'm not so sure we solved the problem yet.
So, Senator, I'm trying to say, would I characterize you as optimistic in this moment?
I will not be optimistic until I hear the Iranian regime say publicly, we recognize Israel's right to exist as a nation and the Jewish people's right to live in peace with the rest of the region. When they say that, I will have a sense of optimism I don't have today. President Trump said a ceasefire will allow Iran and the region to live in peace and harmony. There can be no peace between Iran and Israel until Iran decides to change her policy, which is the regime policy of destroying the state of Israel and killing all the Jews. Until that changes, nothing really changes. The program has been decimated,
Thank you for
but
watching
the
our
people
live.
who are in charge will come right back at Israel. So I'm looking for regime change in this sense, for Iran to abandon its desire to destroy Israel, to recognize Israel's right to exist as a nation. That to me is not too much to ask of the Iranians.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at the history of the last 46 years, it might be too much to ask the theocracy that runs the country with the help of the IRGC.
Well, let's change the theocracy then.
Well, that's the question. Are you up for getting rid of the entire thing? And if so, what fills the vacuum in its place? Because as we've seen in some places in the world, when there's a power vacuum, it doesn't turn out very well.
Sure. Well, number one, I'm not advocating us invading Iran to take down the regime. I don't see American boots on the ground. What I am advocating is for Israel not to be required to go into a room with fanatical religious Nazis and negotiate with them. And no matter
thank you
what
for
they
joining
do, the
from
people
Indonesia.
across the table are going to kill them anyway.
Bagaimana kabar kamu hari ini?
That's not
Hari
fair to the
ini?
world at large. So regime change can come in a couple of ways. You can replace the people
I'm
with
FC.
folks in Iran who don't want to kill all the Jews, which I think are most people, or you can get the regime to change its behavior. Until the regime recognizes Israel's right to exist, this problem doesn't go away. So to me, a prerequisite to any negotiations after the ceasefire should be
FC from the
acknowledgement by
Philippines.
Iran that they've abandoned their policy of destroying the state of Israel. They're now willing to live with Israel. They can have grievances against Israel. They can have concerns about Israel policy, but they have to abandon the goal of killing all the Jews in Israel. If they're not willing to do that, that tells you all you need to know about the ceasefire.
Okay, so we're looking at arrivals there in Netherlands. Obviously, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, is arriving.
Looking good.
Not a punch thrown yet.
English,
So what do you
on his wife, by the way.
What do you expect to come from this summit?
I hope we have solidarity with NATO. To President Trump, congratulations on getting NATO to do something nobody else could do. They're going to 5% GDP on defense. It's going to be billions of dollars NATO contributes to the common need, the common defense. This is a major accomplishment by President Trump. Operation Midnight Hammer was one of the greatest operations in the history of the country. The only reason we're talking about a ceasefire is because of Donald Trump. The only reason that people are giving more to NATO is
ceasefire.
because of
Ano
Donald
ba
Trump.
yan? Ano ba yan?
That we will have
Ceasefire.
a joint understanding that until Russia comes to the peace table, we're going to be harder on Putin, not easier. So President Trump said something pretty telling. You know, Vladimir, my problem is not you helping Iran. My problem is you. So, Mr. President, I have 85 senators, Republican and Democrats, that will send you a bill to allow you to put tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil
Thank you so
up
much
to 500% with a waiver if you like to get Putin to the table.
for
If
listening to
China
the
and
news
India
today.
stop buying
What will
Russian
happen
oil,
to our
then
lives
his war machine,
next?
Putin, would come to a grind and
Maybe
would
we
get
will die.
him to the table. So my goal is to help President Trump get Putin to the
That's
table
why
by giving him
I'm
leverage
hoping
of a
for
sanctions bill and a tariffs
peace.
bill that will do the job. So that is coming to President Trump soon.
All right. Well, we will look forward to all of that and more ahead. Senator, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
President Trump in Amsterdam for a high-stakes NATO summit,
Thank you for
fresh off
joining,
a
everyone.
wild 24 hours testing the ceasefire he brokered between Israel and Iran. The president feeling very frustrated this morning and using some salty language as he out at both countries, accusing them of violating the agreement that he hopes will lead to peace in the region.
I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that
Why?
didn't land,
If we
that
don't
was
have
shot,
peace, you
perhaps
know.
by mistake, that didn't land. They basically have
I
two
just
countries
understand because I
that
have
have
friends
been fighting so long and
from
so hard
Indonesia.
that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You understand that?
But it looks like
I have a lot of
diplomacy
friends
worked.
from
So far,
Indonesia.
the ceasefire between Israel and Iran has been holding steady, with no reports of rocket fire on either side. President
Anti-Semitic swamp is drained.
Oh,
The UN will
Ritik,
be viewed by
why?
fair-minded people everywhere.
We will all die if you don't, if nobody wants
Given the
peace.
anti-Semitism at the UN,
Maybe
it should surprise
maybe
no one
all of the
that the
people in the
prosecutor
world
at the
will
ICC,
die.
one of the UN's
What will happen
affiliated
to our
organs,
life, you know?
is considering issuing arrest warrants
Very
against me
sad.
and Israel's defense minister.
We don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't intend to come here this year. My country is at war, fighting for its life. But after I heard the lies and slanders leveled at my country by many of the speakers at this podium, I decided to come here and set the record straight.
Who's this?
I decided to come here to speak for my people, to speak for my country, to speak for the truth.
What truth? We just wish
And here's
for
the truth.
peace.
Israel seeks peace. Israel yearns for peace. Israel has made peace and will make peace again.
I'm hoping. I need
Yet we
peace.
face savage enemies who seek our annihilation, and we must defend ourselves against these savage murderers. Our enemies seek not only to destroy us, they seek to destroy our common civilization and return all of us to a dark age of tyranny and terror. When I spoke here last year, I said we faced the same timeless choice that Moses put before the people of Israel thousands of years ago. As we were about to enter the Promised Land, Moses told us that our actions will determine whether we bequeath to future generations a blessing or a curse. And that is the choice we face today. The curse of Iran's unremitting aggression, or the blessing of a historic reconciliation between Arab and Jew. In the days that followed that speech, the blessing I spoke of came into sharper focus. A normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel seemed closer than ever. But then came the curse of October 7th. Thousands of Iranian-backed Hamas terrorists from Gaza burst into Israel in pickup trucks, on motorcycles, and they committed unimaginable atrocities. They savagely murdered 1,200 people. They raped and mutilated women. They beheaded men. They burnt babies alive. They burnt entire families alive. Babies, children, parents, grandparents, in scenes reminiscent of the Nazi Holocaust. Hamas kidnapped 251 people from dozens of different countries, dragging them into the dungeons of Gaza. Israel has brought home 154 of these hostages, including 117 who returned alive.
I don't know how
I
to
want to assure
message you.
We will not rest until the remaining hostages are brought home too. And some of their family members are here with us today. I ask you to stand up.
Your wrist failed, bro.
Husani Dan was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. That was his crime.
What you mean?
A music festival. And these
I don't
murderous
know.
monsters took him. Kobe Smyrno, whose son Jonathan was murdered, and his corpse,
You can
corpse
put
was
down
taken
your
into the
number
dungeons,
there. I can
into the
pick
terror
it
tunnels
up
of Gaza.
because
A
if I
corpse
put my
held
number
hostage.
there, maybe all.
Salim Al-Atrash, whose brother Muhammad, a brave Arab Israeli soldier, was murdered. His body too was taken to Gaza. And so was the body of Ifat Hyman's daughter in Bar.
Hello, Max. Where are you watching right now?
With us is Sharon Sharabi,
What are you talking
whose brother Yossi
about?
was murdered, and who prays for his older brother Eli, who is still held hostage
Maybe
in
I
Gaza.
can block.
And with us too is Izhar Lifsich from kibbutz near Oz, a kibbutz that was wiped out by the terrorists. Thankfully, we achieved the release
I
of his
don't
mother
understand
Yocheved,
what do you mean.
but his father Oded is still
Max,
languishing
what
in
do
an
you mean?
underground terrorist hell.
Are you
of Hamas.
listening to this news
I
you
can't
see,
promise you.
or
We will return
if you're
your
not
loved ones
listening
home. We will
this
not
news
spare that effort
carefully?
until this holy mission is accomplished.
What you mean? The missile? Max?
Ladies and gentlemen,
We're listening.
the curse of October
We're
7th
talking about the news
began when
today
Hamas invaded Israel
about
from Gaza.
what's happening in
But it
Iran and
didn't end
Israel.
there.
You know,
Israel was soon forced to defend itself
what do you mean
on
by
6
your
more
message?
war fronts organized by Iran. On October 8th, Hezbollah attacked us from Lebanon. Since then, they fired over 8,000 rockets at our towns and cities, at our civilians, at our children.
Okay, Ritik,
2 weeks
I'm
later,
waiting.
the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen launched drones
Where
and
are you
missiles at
right
Israel.
now,
The
Max?
first of 250 such attacks, including one yesterday aimed at Tel Aviv. Iran's Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq
I
have
think
targeted
Max
Israel
is not
dozens of
listening
times
to the
over the
news.
past year as well. Fueled by Iran, Palestinian terrorists in Judea
Hi,
and Samaria
Harun. How are
perpetrated
you?
scores of attacks there and throughout Israel. And last April,
Harun,
for the first time ever, Iran directly attacked Israel from
I
its own
screen
territory,
all the messages.
firing
If
300
you
drones,
maybe you
cruise
message
missiles,
bad.
and ballistic missiles at us. I have a message for the tyrants of Tehran. If you strike us,
Be, may order ka ba?
there is no place.
Sino yan? Wait.
There is
Hindi
no
sa
place in
munos.
Iran
Wait.
that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East. Far from being lambs led to slaughter, Israel's soldiers have fought back with incredible courage and with heroic sacrifice. And I have another message for this assembly and for the world outside this hall. We are winning. Ladies and gentlemen,